Hey kids, welcome to the Pig Daily. It's episode number 44, and today we're going to be revisiting some true stuff. Now, you guys will notice I'm wearing a headset today. I realized I have my nice, beautiful Razer Kraken. I've got a little mic here, which should be a lot better than the horrible webcam mic I was using yesterday. Let me know. Maybe I need to like speak a bit louder. Maybe I need to move it further away from my mouth. You guys in chat, I will keep an eye on that, and you guys can let me know how it's going. But we're going to continue the theme of doing shorter episodes this week, guys. So we're aiming for that 20-minute mark once again, maybe up to 30 minutes once we add in question time. So we're going to do that. But today, what are we talking about? We're talking about True's unique ZvT. Now, True played really weird. Yesterday, we already analyzed the finals, game one of True versus Polt. And we kind of talked a bit about both sides and just kind of how that game went. And how Polt, unfortunately, made some huge blunders in the early stages. And he played well from there, but wasn't able to kind of pull it back. What I really want to talk about today is number one, the opening. So I'm going to give you guys an overview of how True opens up. Number two, we're going to be talking about really what True's style aims to do conceptually in terms of focusing on wasting his opponent's APM and really kind of fighting the attention and focus war and making things very difficult for the Terran rather than only focusing on being defensive. And finally, I also want to just touch on some of the range of different transitions and all-ins and attacks that he does off this opening because there are so damn many. And that's part of what makes him such a scary guy to play against in a series. I see some sellout shouts in chat. Thanks, boys. So let's dive on into game, guys, and here we are. All right, so the game I'm actually looking at is, I'm sorry the tag on TL says True versus Polt. This is actually True versus Hero Marine because I realized this was a better example of the build in its standard format. I love this epic music. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so what we're up against is a 2-1-1. So True here is facing a 2-1-1, the most standard Terran opening, where they're going to hit with that fast double stem medevac at 5 minutes 20. And this is like his standard build, super typical. So it was hatch gas pool. He's just left on gas. He's gone for a third queen immediately in the main base. And Overlord speed immediately on the natural. So it's your very typical Overlord speed opening. Really simple stuff. You just drone, you build Overlords. All you have is a couple of Zerglings to help defend that Reaper. And because you've gone for that Overlord speed and that gas, you don't go for the third until your Zergling speed finishes at 3 minutes 30. And that's about 44 supply. So notice the Zerglings chase the Reaper off. You get the third base down. Beautiful. Immediately behind that, you also drop Evolution Chamber. Latest you want to drop this is about 3 minutes 50. Now the great thing about True's build is he's so focused on upgrades, he delays his tech quite a bit, and he cuts out any sort of defensive tech structure like a Baneling Nest, a Roach Warren, or even a Spine Crawler. What True really focuses on here is just upgrades and minerals. He defends absolutely everything with Ling Queen, allowing him, off just a minimum amount of gas, to get double upgrades very early in the game. We can see he's just slightly short on that gas, but this melee will start up momentarily. Now, the reason this is so cool is because I've been talking for a long time about how you don't want to rush into your upgrades because a lot of players are trying to tech and make upgrades and economy all at once. Now in this, you can't do all of that and be safe. True realizes that and he said, you know what, if we just mine off only one geyser, notice no extra gases, he says, you know what, I can get Overlord speed and then it can also get the upgrades. But I'm still going to have to cut tech. I'm going to delay tech, I'm going to delay Baneling Nest or Roachhorn or anything like that, and really just focus on on the upgrades, Queens and Zerglings. So notice, he stops at about 43 drones. So the main is fully saturated, the natural is at 24 drones. Obviously he's been scouting what's going on with his speed overlords. He saw just from the Marine count at the front what was going on, and he didn't even bother scouting more to double check. That's, you know, if you're doing this build, you'd want to actually go through and see a bit more of what's going on. But 5 minutes 20, we're at that moment where that double stim drop is arriving, and this is where this build is strongest. So, I said it before, this is the most common Terran opening right now. And this is such an efficient way to deal with it. And this whole build is almost designed specifically around shutting this one timing down. Like this is your comfort zone with this build. It's all about not making Banelings, We've seen people like Beyond recently take Dark out of GSL by just going bam, stim, focus firing with his Marines and actually killing, I think it was like eight Banelings, slow Banelings before they could connect with his Marines and just kill Dark because he didn't have enough Queens and Zerglings. Definitely as the armies get bigger, you do need Banelings, but at this point, you've just got this great combination of Queens and Zerglings, and it just works out very well. So notice the queen production has been pretty consistent after that third hatchery. The Evo chambers start the upgrades. From there, it was like, okay, non-stop queens, keep building them. You see here, another queen's about to start up, another queen's about to start up, another queen's about to finish. So there's 7 queens out, but True doesn't stop there, and he actually pulls all the queens to the front. And you'll notice he throws them all on a specific hotkey as well. This is his defensive creep queen hotkey. Right now, there's only 6 queens on this hotkey. So it's these 5, 6. Where's the 7th queen? Oh, 7th queen is in the main. But he's going to bring that down, and he's going to throw that on the hotkey. He literally just added it. You can see there's 7 queens on that hotkey now. And the reason he can do that is because he doesn't need to hotkey his queens that are at his hatcheries. He's just letting the new ones pop out. They'll replace the injecting queens, and his macro will work as normal. So at this drone count, he does mass Zerglings as well, usually up to about 30 or so Zerglings, exactly 30 Zerglings this game. And notice he's been very active with his creep spread. Now, what we're going to see here is the way you're meant to engage against this. He's going to focus fire the medevacs, and then the Zerglings will come in. You never want the Zerglings to go out in front of the queens, because then the Marines can stutter step backwards. Your queens will be kind of like waddling their way over, trying to get in the fight, and they'll never actually make it there in time. So we see here, both engaging at the same time. If the Zerglings get the surround to stop the Marines stutter stepping, that's great. And that beautiful focus fire takes down one of the medevacs. And this is the important thing, immediate creep respread. Now, as soon as you know you're safe against that timing, what do? 14 drones in that production tab. You just build masses of drones. True drops his lair. He's going to drop his Baneling nest soon. And kind of continues on his path. So let's take a look at how he goes from here. Now, the pressure kind of continues here, but that's not really the most important thing. What is important is that True is only taking extra gases now. Once his third base was almost fully saturated there, his natural was oversaturated, and his main was oversaturated as well. So True here, staying on just 1 gas until he's at 3 bases fully saturated is a very important maneuver from him. Alright, he starts to make a lot of mistakes this game, kind of letting these Marines come in from all sides. The reason for that is his Zerglings were busy up here trying to take down these rocks, because on Galactic Process he really wants to open up these counterattack paths. So he takes a bit of damage, his queens are kind of slow to deal with it, but whenever his queens do get on top of it, they shut down these medevacs so fast that it does mean that Hero Marine doesn't get to save these units most of the time. The drop in the main went down, and even though some drones are dying, it's okay for True because he has other strengths of this style. So let's talk quickly about the other strengths of this style. There are moments in True's games where he's down on workers against Terran. There's moments where he's down in overall supply quite significantly. But what we found, at least in DreamHack Montreal WCS Summer Circuit Championship, is he was down in those, but he'd have creep over the entire map, and he'd have counterattacks set up in like every single location. And this is kind of that mid-game point where we really get to talk about what exactly is his game plan from here. What is it that makes his style so unique, so special? So let's take let's take a look back in game, and let me bring my notes up as well, because I have a nice little set of notes here, and I want to make sure I touch on all these topics briefly. So keep in mind there's a lot of all-ins that True does off this as well, which normally make his opponents very nervous about focusing on that pressure, like that medevac pressure before. But it's not just that. Let's put this on True's camera. So he actually embraces the APM and focus war of ZvT. He's a player who says, you know what, technically this style is not amazing if the Terran can focus purely on microing his aggression perfectly, constantly poking in, spreading, denying creep, dropping in the back, shutting everything down. You'll notice right now, for instance, the lair's up, there's no Spire on the way. And True says, you know what, if I just sit back defensively, this gives you all the momentum and all the ability to dictate the pace of the game. And True realizes just the advantage that gives, and he says, rather than focusing inwardly, I'm going to make it really hard for you to control the flow of the game. I'm going to counterattack, I'm going to threaten counterattacks without actually committing to them. I'm going to use drops. He doesn't use drops on this map for very good reasons. Hey, thank you MM Sheen, appreciate the sub, mate. So why doesn't he use drops on this map? The reason for that is there's not a lot of dead space on the edges, and there's like a billion counterattack paths. Once these rocks go down, you've got so many ways to attack from, so you'll almost never see True drop on this map. But on, for instance, King Sejong Station, that's a map where he drops almost every game because the mineral lines are right next to dead space. You can get in there, and there's so little time for Terran to react. So True always adjusts to the map, but what we see as a common theme is he's always looking for a way to put pressure back on Terran, to make them uncomfortable, and to find that potential for damage. As a result, often, right when the Terran wants to be hitting, even though if their units were microed perfectly, they might do well against his army, because they're distracted in multiple areas, there's so many opportunities for Terran to screw up their micro against his Lingbane. There's so many opportunities for Terran to just make mistakes and suddenly lose all of his Marines to Banelings, or suddenly lose 30 or 40 SCVs to a counterattack. And it's something we see constantly throughout his games. So I really feel like True's whole goal is, I'm going to make your life hard as a Terran player, and that's what's going to give me success in the game. This game actually got kind of crazy. It got crazy. So, yeah. So this game kind of goes on, and the thing is, the moment True shuts down all this multi-prong, and notice his queens, like I said, they're punishing it. They're actually shooting down the medevacs a lot of the time. And then he gets into counterattack mode. He gets into, let's start running Zerglings in from all angles. He's only got 56 drones. He does not have a great economy. But let's watch this next minute or two in terms of how True plays this. Now this attack here actually gets held very well. So let's fast forward. Doesn't really do much damage there. But what is True doing in the midst of this? Every moment where Terran is occupied, desperately trying to drop him, every moment where Terran is kind of counterattacking or dealing with a counterattack, this creep is spreading. And this is something, if you want to talk about True's mechanics being good, I often say, you know what, I see him make some mechanical errors, but for some reason in this matchup, one of the things he is mechanically so good at is trying to consistently spread creep. Not perfectly, because no one spreads perfect creep, but he tries to spread creep so well while buying this time, while distracting the Terran. And if there's one thing that we know about Zerg, especially in Legacy of the Void, is if you leave Zerg alone for a minute or two, if you ever give them any freedom, any room, suddenly they will just explode in economy. They will get way out of control. Especially with this style that True plays, he often takes a really fast 5th base to use as a macro hatch rather than building a macro hatch. So in case he loses like his 4th, he can swap drones to his 5th. But that also gives him the opportunity to just drone up really high some games. In this game, he doesn't play that. He just kind of keeps counterattacking on this low unit count. But look at that. Once again, he goes in there while engaging the natural. You see, the timing on this is what makes it so spectacular. Hits the natural, knows Terran's distracted, and he knows there's a good chance Hero Marine isn't going to be ready. Hero Marine actually played really well though. Great split, great pullback. Because he didn't need to micro too much at the natural. But once again, there we go. Bam. You can see just how hard this is for Hero Marine. His queens constantly respreading that creep. The Lingbane constantly going in and out, in and out, in and out. And this has this really disruptive effect of absolutely wrecking the Terran's rhythm. The Terran wants to macro, bring more units up, set up, push, send in, drop. He wants to be dictating the pace of the game, so he knows exactly when he has to look at each piece of the map, right? And what True does is he says, you need to look here, you need to look here. And the Terran player's attention kind of gets pulled from side to side constantly. So I think it's just a very cool way to play. He's just kind of constantly throwing in those Lingbane counterattacks and coming in from all sorts of different angles. Yeah, let's kind of watch how this game peters out. So let's watch from True's point of view once more. I think it's really good to watch, especially with a style like this, from the player's point of view, because you can really get inside their head. You can see he's kind of just pulling back those guys up here on the north side, sacrifices that 5th, doesn't really care about it too much. And he's just A-moved his entire army over here and says, oh, you know what, you're not prepared for this. Starts to kill the SCVs, realizes there's nothing there, his Baneling's running into the third. And he's able to set this up because of his creep spread. Because of those Banelings on the left-hand side made it so hard for Hero Marine to push. At a certain point, Hero Marine realized he couldn't just push in there without staring at his army, without being really sure he would be safe. So because Hero Marine wasn't able to do that, Hero Marine kind of just was like stuck in this random top corner of the map, and True was like, you know what? I know that you're not going to push me right now. Let's just A-move my entire army on the right-hand side of the map. And suddenly, you start to see the weakness of Terran and just generally the non-Zerg player, because the Zerg can just reposition his whole army from one side of the map to the other very quickly. And True is always looking for those angles. Not just on maps where the mineral lines are exposed, but also on maps where there simply isn't a good frontal attack path. Say Gettysburg and a few other maps as well. You'll see True throw these drops in, just Ling Bane drop in the main, Ling Bane drop in the natural, while counter-attacking as well. Because he wants to make it uncomfortable for Terran. He wants Terran to feel forced to leave units in the main, to leave units at the natural, to leave units at the third. And if the Terran leaves too many units at home, suddenly the creep gets out of control. Don't get me wrong, this is so hard to execute. It is so hard to execute for True. But he's basically trying to force the pressure onto Terran so that he doesn't have to be reacting as much. One of the hardest things when it comes to APM and attention is reacting to your opponent quickly in the heat of the moment, especially when you're talking about Banelings versus Bio, pulling drones away and drop defense versus stim Bio drops. That's some of the hardest stuff to do in StarCraft. It takes so much reaction speed, and it disrupts whatever you're doing at the time when you suddenly have to react to them. But even though True does so much, he does it on his own terms. And let's take a look at the APM tab. I mean, they've both got like 350 APM. They've both got very good APM, but that's not that crazy actually. You know, some of the younger Korean players are up in the 400s. But you'll notice here True doesn't really have to stare at these units the whole time, because he's the one who's attacking. If he's not looking, he loses a few extra Zerglings. He can just not even look at them. He can just like select the hotkey, pull them back, or you know, look over there, box them, and pull them out of there. Whereas Hero Marine, if he's ever not looking, if he ever makes a mistake, bam, 21 SCVs gone, just like that. So True really does make Terran's life kind of horrible. He really messes with them, and yeah. So guys, I'm going to be going into question time shortly, and we're also going to hop in and look at a few of the all-ins which True does, which add in a series, in a tournament, to the difficulty of playing against him for Terran players. So I'm going to look at those while I answer questions. I want you guys to shout out your @x5_pig tag in order to do that. And yeah, let's hop out of this replay, because I think we've seen everything we can from there. And while I start to show some of these all-ins that he does off at these aggressive builds, and sometimes they're not like pre-planned all-ins, sometimes they're just counterattacks. But sometimes he does just throw those out there, and it seems super random. But he finds a way to make it work. So, first question, which I actually wrote for myself, because I was thinking about it, and this is what occurred to me. As I was thinking about this style yesterday, I was thinking a lot about, this works in a unique way, it's cool, it pulls the Terran's attention around. What beats this is the Terran player. And I was thinking, well, perfect play. Like, if the Terran just doesn't make mistakes, none of these counterattacks find damage. Even though you distract the Terran player, you're committing units to distract them with all these things. If they don't take damage to that, and they keep focused on their units on the front. So for instance, like often what True does, right, is he distracts at one point, so then you're not watching the front and you lose a medevac, or you lose 2 medevacs. Or the Banelings run into your Marines. If a Terran's good enough and fast enough to still react and not lose those units at the front and shut down the pressure, with every move like that, True falls a little bit behind. Because he commits a lot to it, doesn't get damage done. So I was thinking, can True, with this style, really take on a Maru? Can he take on a TY? Are they just going to be too good mechanically and too good at putting pressure back on him and maintaining that pressure that he starts to fall apart? In that last game, for instance, even though Hero Marine lost one of his first 2 medevacs, which is it's so bad. It's such a bad start for Terran. There was a moment where it looked like Hero Marine was dictating the pace of the game with those drops. So if he can do that, what if he kept it up? What if he kept up that pressure and kept attacking? Would True really have ever found a moment where he could get in his element and suddenly look like that unstoppable beast we've been seeing? In True vs. Polt in the finals, we also saw Polt never really get, excuse me, into a standard game. Not very often. Game 1, Polt messed up and accidentally lifted his barracks and cancelled his stim, completely screwing up his stim timing, hitting a minute late. I think it was like even more than a minute late. It was a massive screw up. I'm sure Polt was hating himself for it. And then there was like Dan's game station got played. Then we had Gettysburg, which was Polt's next chance to do that standard play and maybe get in his element and maybe show the mechanical but also intelligent and kind of focus-wise beast that Polt is. And the problem was he never found the chance to get into that position. And that reason is right here. So True here scouted the 2-1-1. He did his standard opening. And the only difference is he dropped a second gas. About 3 minutes, I think it was 3 minutes 30, something like that. But he just dropped a second gas and a baneling nest. Stopped at 2 bases saturated, 2 gases, and massed zerglings. Only got 3 queens at home. He knows this attack's going to be hitting. Doesn't even need to defend the third. Sorry guys, I tried to rip my headset off so I don't sneeze into the mic. I hope that wasn't too loud. Rip headphone users. Oof. Yeah, so what he's saying is I'm just going to hit a big baneling timing. I know when your attack hits, so right when your units are on my side of the map, I'm just going to roll on in. And I was really curious to see how this would play out. I was like, will Polt be able to just take him now that he's like used to the style? Will he just not make mistakes? And we see here, depot lowered. The units come in. Polt a little bit slow to spread these Marines out. Trying to pull SCVs to help, but you know, he does a decent job there, but unfortunately, there's just too much wasted time. These Marines needed to be getting in on top of everything. Now there's too many Queenslings and Banes there, so he can't really do any significant counter damage. And his base at home is just kind of wrecked. He gets forced to lift, and it's game over. Just mixing in these timing attacks, these all-ins, is something which True's so good at. And even just the threat of this happening is why sometimes you'll see Beyond, when he does a 2-1-1, actually drop a scan on the Zerg's third base, or then between their natural and their third, to see, hey, are they preparing an all-in? Because if I pick up and leave my base right now, I might die to that. We saw Maru in the Pro League finals, CJ versus Jinner. We saw what happened was Biel's counter was the same Baneling all-in versus Cure. Cure picked up to leave the base with his double drop. Banelings crashed in, killed him. So in the grand final, sorry, not the grand final, but the ace match, Jinner sent Maru out. And what Maru actually did was he picked up his medevacs, didn't put anything in them, and boosted them out past the Overlord. And then Biel was like, all right, more for a whole bunch of Banelings. I'm going to do the same build. You know, Terrans are just being so predictable. I can't believe Jinner are this dumb. And he like tries to crash in, and suddenly there's like 25 Stim Marines behind the natural wall, and Biel's like, ah, and ends up way behind. The medevacs just turn around and fly home. And it was all a hoax from Maru trying to get him to commit. It was one of the sickest moments in Pro League, actually. So just the threat of these all-ins also keeps Terran players really uncomfortable. So let's answer a few questions while I also open up one more replay showing it defending a big Hellbat timing with this heavy Queen production. So let's see. MM Sheen says, Pig, what is the mid to late transition from this style? Ultras, mutas, or cracklings? So I really just wanted to focus on the opening today. Now, why did I only want to focus on the opening? The reason is... Sorry, 1 second. Trying to find the map. There we go. So the reason is there's so many ways you can play from there. True himself plays it in many different ways. Sometimes he plays Lingbane Muta. And I think I'm actually looking, I'm going to be showing you guys a map where he plays Lingbane Muta. Yeah, I am. So sometimes he plays Lingbane Muta. Sometimes he adds Ravages with his Lingbane and just goes Infestors and into Ultras. But what you'll find is he very rarely rushes to Ultras. He's very mid-game focused. So he's more likely to focus on lots of, you know, just mass Lingbane, counterattacks, even when he's got Fungal and Ravages. He won't just fast tech towards Ultras. And he always prioritizes Adrenal Glands as the very first thing he does when his Hive finishes. Sometimes his Ultra Cavern gets quite delayed. The important thing, though, is no matter what, obviously you're focusing on Zergling upgrades with whatever transition you do. And those are the two main ones, like Lingbane Muta or Lingbane Corruptor, or adding Ravagers and Infestors into Ultras off both styles eventually, of course. All right. Olov says, how could Hero Marine and Polt prepared for this style? Well, I think Hero Marine actually played pretty well, but True, really kind of puts a lot of pressure on his opponents to screw up and make mistakes. And I feel like maybe they could have just chosen their builds a little bit better. That game just then, we just watched. Polt, why didn't he have his depot raised? Polt made a lot of mistakes. Game 1, Polt lifted his barracks. Not only did he lift his barracks to cancel stim, he also got supply blocked at like a really crucial moment. So like, players were making mistakes. True wasn't making as many mistakes. On one level, True was the cleaner, crisper mechanical player.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Wardy. Appreciate the host. So he just played crisper, he played cleaner, whereas these guys, they made too many mistakes, to put it simply. Hero Marine, I actually felt like put up a better fight against True in a lot of these games, but we're about to take a look at one of these, very safe things. We see that, okay, not only can True do his timing attacks and all-ins, he can also defend these crazy attacks. This was Hero Marine throwing in a big 8 Hellbat timing while trying to hit with 2 Liberators at the same time. Really cute timing. If True kind of panics a little bit, these Liberators just massacre those drones because he's distracted at the front. Because he builds so many Queens with this style, bad build order choice by Hero Marine, in my opinion. Might have worked versus a lesser opponent. Doesn't work here. Only ends up killing, I think, 2 drones with this. See, these Queens are already on top of this Liberator. Like, Liberator comes in here. By the time it sets up, the Queen already kills it. Kills 2 drones, wastes a bit of mining time. But such an investment, and it just doesn't work out. So I definitely feel like I would have loved to see more games where the Terran players played that standard 2-1-1, didn't lose any of their early medevacs, pushed back the creep steadily, and just covered themselves against counterattacks a bit better. Made sure their depots were up, made sure they had proper wall-offs. Polt, when he did his 3 racks Reaper build, didn't wall off properly behind it and didn't stop True from taking down the rocks on Galactic Process. So even though True was kind of caught with his pants down against the build, had no idea it was coming, he was able to do a really weird, just heavy speedling reaction. And because the Reapers couldn't defend properly, he ended up losing the game. Polt ended up losing the game from a position where he probably should have won. I think most Terran players would say that. Though when everyone gets back from Montreal, I'm going to be asking everyone some questions about the games, and we'll have some pro gamer answers as well. Let's put this on True's camera. Are there any Terran openings that require different reactions early on that divert from this build, says Plants? I mean, there's always some, like a 1-base all-in, but generally speaking, this is like a one-size-fits-all opening. You've got Overlord speed, so there's a few different ways you can play it. Now, if you wanted to, depending on what you know about your opponent, some games we see True go for 10 queens, 11, 12 queens, just as if that's his standard, and it is his safer way of playing. But other games and against other opponents, he'll stop at 5, maybe 6 queens, and he'll focus much more on being greedy and getting away with it. We saw him do that in Game 1 against Polt on Apotheosis, because the rush distance was so far, he started adding the queens a lot later on. So there are some slight adjustments, but generally speaking, it is a one-size-fits-all opening. Frisk says, does True try to win with this style, or does he want to go for Hive if he doesn't do any damage? Yet, well, True, every now and then he commits to an all-in attack, but very rarely does he just say, oh, okay, I'm in the mid-game off the standard opening, let's just make units off 3-base saturation and try to kill you. He throws in Lingbane timings, but it's always adjustable and flexible based on his understanding. So the absolute last thing I want to be doing with this is saying this is the exact way you play an entire game for 15 minutes and you do it the same way every game. That is the opposite of how True plays StarCraft. True is an unpredictable player, he's a smart player, he's a player who adjusts during the games, during the series, and while you guys can definitely try out his opening, because I think it's a really solid opening, you're going to need to use your own understanding for how you adjust from situation to situation. And that truly is the best way to learn StarCraft. Even if you make bad decisions along the way, that's how you improve your understanding in the long run. So it's definitely something where True often techs up higher, but what we saw in this tournament was a lot of the time he just won in that mid game. He won with those counterattacks, or he won with a big all-in attack. Turginator, Turing Tenor, said, I noticed that he seemed to consistently manage to get ahead on upgrades. That seems to be one of the strongest parts of his style. Can you comment on some of the nuances of how you can make this work? Well, we talked about it at the very start of the episode, so I'm not sure if any of you guys missed it, but just to rehash, what's so special about his opening is he cuts out tech for a long time and he cuts out gas income for a long time. This allows him to both build a good economy, a fast economy, and at the same time, exceptionally fast upgrades. Pretty much the fastest double upgrades you can go for. Getting his double Evo chamber often as early as 3 minutes 40. I might as well show you guys that point in the build. The reason is, like I said, because he wants to get Overlord speed, because that's his preference. There we go. We see double Evos at 3 minutes 40, so fast. Because he keeps mining gas off that single gas, off only one gas income, he's able to get enough money for that double upgrade. He doesn't need to take more gases. He can start 1-1 off just one gas, get a third base, drone it up, and focusing his defense purely around mineral units, especially because the queens are stronger now. This is a sort of style which I've been advocating since the start of Legacy, because defending with just mineral units does work so well against so many different types of attack, but now with the queen buff it's even stronger. So really what True's doing is he's saying, I'm going to delay that tech. Look at this point in this game. No lair. 6 minutes. Doesn't care about a lair. He cares about getting a big economy up, because what you need with a Zergling style is a big economy. Why do you need a big mineral income? Because you need to get a fast 4th, you need to get a fast 5th or macro hatch. If you don't have that, you won't be able to produce enough Zergling Baneling in the mid game, and you will simply get overwhelmed by bio. Alright. I think that's enough questions for today, guys. I do appreciate all of you hanging out. Including question time, we've gone just over half an hour, which is quite fine. I want 20 to 30 minute episodes this week, so that's awesome. So let's hop out of the game then, and I want to say a big thanks to everyone for watching. We're going to continue these shorter episodes this week. Just to summarize this episode, True, a brilliant player, really doing something we don't see a lot of Zergs doing. So many Zergs at the moment are focusing on just defending, and they're letting the Terran pull them around. The drops are darting in from every angle. The units at the front are clearing creep. True here at Whittling Bane, showing that it's just as much about defending with his style as it is about putting pressure back on your opponent, counter-attacking, throwing them off, and at his high level in tournament settings, making his opponents uncomfortable by always mixing in all-in attacks, always mixing in big YOLOs. The replay we didn't show here was the one where he defended the really fast Marine tank push from Polt and then went and dropped Queens in his natural, all with full energy, and they literally sat there fighting like a tank and like a few Marines and SCVs for like 4 minutes while transfusing each other. While he broke the wall down with speedlings. You know, he did these bizarre counterattacks, but mixing in that aggression constantly and really having this dance where the Terran player just can't focus on achieving his goals. And if he's ever not watching, those squishy Terran units, those Medivacs versus Queens, those Marines versus Banelings just go plop, they disappear, and Terran loses momentum. So True is fighting to give himself the space to get up the economy in order to make Lingbane Muta work. He does it incredibly well. As I said, there's the one addendum. Would this work if he wasn't so good compared to his opponents mechanically? I feel like he just played much crisper than Polt. I think he played a little bit crisper than Hero Marine. I feel like Polt, one of the smartest players in the game, didn't get a chance to really fully explore his his ways of dealing with the style. But would this work against TY? Would it work against Mario? Only time will tell. True already has his seed for BlizzCon, so I really hope he runs into one of those guys and we get to actually see if he plays the same style, does it work at that level? And we'll find out. So thanks for hanging out, guys. For you guys hanging out on the stream, I will be laddering and doing some other stuff. So yeah, appreciate the support. Don't forget to hug a watermelon, kick a walrus, and of course, punch a watermelon to the moon. I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.